brains behind this wild ride, and he's going to take over from here.
Yeah, well, this all started off with a Reddit inquiry about whether there was a makerspace, and if not, if anybody was interested in starting one. And it just evolved from there, and it's gotten more and more complicated. But I think we're actually starting to gain the momentum that we need to make this thing happen. So what we plan on showing you tonight is some of the challenges that we have and try to justify the membership fee that we're going to have to charge to make this thing work. We're trying to make this as inclusive as we can. We're not sure how we're going to, include people who may not be able to afford the membership charge or the monthly membership, but we're working it out as best as we can. Let's and my interest is, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none type guy. I've been wanting to build and everybody's heard the story, and a lot of people have already heard it, a wood strip canoe since I was like 14. And I've never had the space, never had the materials to do it. I've got the materials, I don't have the space still, so I'm looking for a space. And once we do have a Makerspace, one of the projects I'm going to jump right into is try to build a strong back and start putting out wood strip canoes. So then eventually I hope everybody else who wants to build a wood strip canoe can do so, or anything along those lines. So we're on our little journey here with the first slide. So we kind of fine-tuned our mission vision. Lucas has been doing a great job of marketing and slicking up our presentations and making us look like we're organized, which is good. And so now we're into the part where we need to start fundraising. And that's what we basically want to talk about. Now we've also got a meeting with Mayor Bliss on the 15th, and hopefully we're hoping to get some support there. We've already approached all the community colleges, but lately WMCAT's been kicked around, but we've already had contact with WMCAT. But try again, right? You never know who you're going to just define in the organization that picks up on it. So we're trying to move along to get whatever support we can. The space is the problem. Obviously, real estate is expensive, as we're going to explain here too. But none of the community colleges are actually willing to host a makerspace like the Lakeshore Fab Lab, where Muskegon Community College is hosting them, which would be ideal. But we're not getting any offers on that. So we've got some equipment waiting to go into a space once we have it. And
when you say equipment, what sort of equipment?
That's where it's coming
Oh.
So we've got two mill rate CNC machines. One's a larger one, and then we've got the desktop one, basically. It's in an enclosure. We've got some woodworking equipment. This is, consumer grade stuff for the time being. Once we get into Makerspace, I mean, that's part of the allure is that we'll be able to afford, good stuff. Nothing's more frustrating than failing because you just don't have the proper equipment for it. So we've got a Hitachi 12-inch sliding miter saw. So I guess.
Oh, you ready? Okay.
I mean, I can get into the specs of all this stuff, but, And then we've got portable table saw. We've got the rigid oscillating edge belt sander, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with or seen at Home Depot. And then we have a Laguna 14-inch bandsaw, which was part of my equipment for making the cedar strip canoe. So that's why that's in there. And then we get to the 3D printers. And we've got a variety of 3D printers. latest one's this Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon, which has really been a lot of fun to work with, and I think anybody who is interested in 3D printing will find it pretty easy to use. And then we've got some of the old standbys, the original Prusa 3D printer, which is kind of like the standard for makerspaces and 3D printer enthusiasts. We've got a bunch of other equipment that's going to be involved here. Workbenches, air compressors, impacts, the list goes on and on. Well, one of the things that we had talked about and what we're looking in for space is that people could do their own car repairs or customizations, cleaning, whatever, inside of a heated building during the winter, which I would think would be kind of a big draw to everybody. Okay, so I think we're getting on to the spaces now. So the search is on, and this is just a sampling of locations. Some of the stuff that's come up, there's been a lot more. Barry has been working on this. This is a car wash, which is just around the corner from here. I'm not sure when it went out of business, but it must have been a while ago. It's in bad shape, but the person who owns it now is willing to put a makerspace in there, and they're willing to build it out and everything else. This is like the dream location, if we could afford it, which right
There's a
now.
new gas station developing right there too, and it's right off the highway.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
it would be like-
See the advantage, it's large.
Yeah.
The owner is willing to work with Makerspace. It's got freeway access. It's got 5 overhead doors, plenty of parking. It's got a roadside sign that we make our own.
Yeah.
And it's right on the bus route. In fact, all the buses stop right there for some reason and wait 30 minutes at a time.
That's called a mandatory break by the
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell why I'm not a bus route manager, okay? And he's willing to build the suit, but he's going to want some commitment. The disadvantages, of course, are cost. This is roughly 6,900 square feet. Barry might be able to chime in here. He's the one who originally contacted. So my monthly rent estimate would be like $28.75 at $5 square foot. And we don't want to get into the weeds too much about cost, but when you're looking at commercial real estate, it's by the square foot per year. Then you take that and divide by 12. That gives you your monthly rent. And then this unknown, they call it triple net or triple N or CAM. It's actually two different things. Some properties have both, but the triple net basically means all like taxes and everything else pass through to you to pay, where the landlord's not involved. And then CAM is basically fees for maintenance of the property, parking lots, that kind of stuff. And this one just came up recently. This one is a basement location that they're looking to have occupied. They seem to be willing to work with us too. It's centrally located, as you can see, it's at 1140 Monroe, so right off the river downtown.
Right by the Med Center too.
What's that?
I said right by the Med Center too.
Wait, what are you trying to say, Chris? Did I go in handy?
Workers in the crowd.
And the owner's willing to work with us. They're talking to a structural engineer right now about putting a car ramp in to accommodate us. It's 18,000 square feet. Obviously, we don't need a whole 18,000 square feet to start, so we're talking like a quarter of it. He was like, well, we'll build it out for you. I'm like, we're willing to take just bare walls, as long as we got light and electricity, we're good for, to initially get in and start something up. So this one also, it's got freeway access, obviously, since it's right downtown. There's plenty of parking. It's right next to as you can see in the back here, that's like a strip mall that sticks out a bunch of little restaurants and stuff.
The best Chinese food.
Oh.
Is there
That's
really?
in my neighborhood, yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Just across the river, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing
And then-
Chinese buffet.
My sense of humor is we could advertise it as welcome to the dungeon. So, this is home repair services. This is kind of a bar shop right now that they were hosting the men's shed. And we missed our opportunity there because if we could have just slipped in behind the men's shed, we'd probably have a space up and running right now. But he's got a nonprofit right now, and I'm not sure how long he's gonna stay, that's occupying 2,600 square feet, and they would rent to us for $1,200 a month, which would be affordable, and that would be including utilities, which is another cost we have to calculate or figure into our monthly expenses there. So the advantages are it's affordable, centrally located, it's right off the division. It's right off the intersection of Halls, so it's got freeway access, plenty of parking, and it's also on a bus route.
And it could be a bowling alley if we ever get bored.
It just kind of looks like
I've been in that space, it's nice.
Yeah, the only concern I think I have about that space is that the spaces aren't like really well segregated. They're like people just kind of drifting in and out of
Yeah.
different spaces. So where Chris in the men's shed was over in the corner, they kind of had it walled off where they had their own space. But like I said, the men's shed recently folded. They're not folded, they're on a hiatus. So for 2 years or whatever. So this here is right around the corner. The reason we're kind of Granville centric here is because that's where we live. And there's a lot of properties that just aren't on the real estate sites, and I just happened to come across this one. This individual is a lot of fun to talk to.
Is this one Granville or Grand Rapids? Maybe I labeled it wrong.
It's Granville.
Oh, oops.
Yep. It's, yeah, well, the division
Far enough
kind of throws everybody
Yeah,
off.
far
right?
enough down in the division.
Right, it's right behind the Speedway over here. And he's got his own makerspace in there. This guy's built ultralight airplanes, campers. He's got some kind of camper design that he has outsourced to somewhere in Shelbyville or something. It's an interesting character, but he wants lots of money for that. He figures it's worth $8 a square foot, which is kind of on the high side. It would have, he's got power everywhere in there. You would never have to worry about upgrading the electrical system. And there's 2 overhead doors, and it's kind of divided up well enough that you could have like the wood shop in the back and then everything else up in the front. So, but the disadvantages are it's expensive and it's not centrally located. This one here keeps coming in and out of Facebook. They've been a pain to get hold of, but they finally got back to me. And it's 2,500 square feet, and it's mixed. So it's office space plus a warehouse, which would be ideal, right? Because in the office space, we put 3D printers, laser cutters, that kind of stuff. Be nice and clean. Then in the bay there, we could set up the wood shop and a little auto shop or whatever. It's right on a bus route. It's got plenty of parking, and the disadvantage is, actually the 2250 I don't think is really bad for that location. And it's not really centrally located. I can't remember what street it's actually off of, but it's right over by where Horrocks is, within like a mile or 2 of Horrocks. So, so that's what we're facing with finding a place. And that, on top of that, you know, there's going to be utilities and there's going to be insurance. I was hoping by the meeting to have some kind of estimate on insurance cost, but they never contacted me back. So we're going to have to try another insurance agent. Any comments? Anybody got any questions so far? Yes, sir.
I just have a comment. I am working with Granville Public Schools to acquire one of the properties that they have closed down. And one of the things that I'm trying to focus on is 3D printing. I would love to chat with you guys and like collaboration as I try to acquire this property to run the programming. Because you guys have like the set programming, and I'd rather work with people that already have things set so we can kind of strengthen what we're trying to do together. So I would love to speak to you guys about potentially partnering as I'm speaking to Granville Public Schools about acquiring this property.
It's Grand Rapids or Grand?
No, Granville, so here in Granville, they have a closed down school in the area, and I'm gonna talk to the superintendent soon about acquiring that property.
All right, oh, cool.
But it's funny you should say that. The next slide is about partnerships.
I mean, we're open to collaborating with whoever to get.
Yeah, it might make more sense to partner with someone too, 'cause it's split a big space, right?
Yep.
Right. Do you know AJ over at the Baxter Center by chance?
Nope, I don't.
Okay, because he's into the whole STEM.
Yeah, I'm really big into STEM and STEAM, but I really enjoy 3D printing. Like, I always talk about 3D printing homes. So eventually I want to get to that, where we 3D print homes to attack homelessness and the housing crisis. And doing it globally, like, we can start here locally, but I have a global vision for what I'm trying to do. I've been speaking about 3D printing ever since I found out about it like 4 years ago. So it's the same concept, it's just the printers are bigger.
One of the individuals who's been interested in this whole thing is, I'm going to say his name, Mohit, M-O-H-I-T. He's here at the last meeting, and he's into using a CNC machine to build wall panels for homes or whatever.
Okay.
Too. So there might, I hate to use the word synergy because that sounds like corporate. But,
It is the perfect word though, synergy. So they gotta create something nice.
yeah, so we'll be interested in talking to you individually later on. Okay, cool. So,
Pat, he had something.
oh, yes, sir.
I was just curious if there is a target demographic as far as location, because I know there's a big demographic of like young adult crafters and creators in kind of the East Town area, which is quite a ways away from like Granville area. So is there a focus right now on trying to find something more
No,
centrally
we're
located?
open to anything basically probably within 5 miles of the freeway loop, That'd be like the outer boundaries, really.
There was some, if I can interject, there was something about the property like over by the Creston area, actually where Lions and Rabbits was. I don't know if you already
He
left.
just had to go.
Okay, that there were developers who just bought all of it out and are very competitive to change it and flip the neighborhood quickly. So it's been kind of hard to find available real estate near like the center of the area because East Town is very popular.
Oh yeah, it's very
So it's kind of
expensive.
like, yeah, so if you like, are walking by, like we walked by buildings and seen signs and like if you have that kind of information, if you're like walking by, just if you email the group, they can absolutely go contact them, especially if you
We're
say,
actually in the Wyoming area.
Okay.
There is a rundown warehouse type building right on the corner of Berkeley and 131. I believe someone might be living in it, but I can't imagine it would cost very much.
okay,
If you could be convinced to sell.
Yep.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like the reason we're on commute time, right? Like, if it were somewhere like Granville or along the M6, the 196 corridor, you're all within 20 minutes.
Yeah,
And being on a bus line is really
right. I mean,
but,
the car wash thing is kind of off too, because it's Granville. But like you said, it's right off of 196. I'm used to big cities like Detroit where it'd take you an hour to get from one side to the
You
other.
don't have to go across any city streets. for
So,
most of the
I think driving in Grand Rapids is like, a snap. I fly out of the airport every week and, it takes me 20 minutes to get over to try to do that in Detroit or Minneapolis or.
Yeah.
I think it's valuable to the fact that, however, what Alex is saying is that we would, if you have like a project that you're working on all week and it's not convenient, like the main point of getting
Oh, sure.
transportation, I think it's
It's difficult to commit
valuable.
to a half-hour drive to.
When you're talking about like, oh gosh, I need this project done for like a wedding and it's a backup and I have a commitment and I already work and this is a hobby type, we gotta be convenient to that as
No,
well.
sure. But,
So,
I
if you could
mean,
give me that
so
information.
you gotta pick a point inside the Grand Rapids area where you can.
Right, and then there's like the West Siders versus the East Siders.
Yeah. Well, one of the people.
Oh, very
talked about-
racist meaning death.
Oh, Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to comment on this real estate issue. Pat's already emphasized the difficulty it is in trying to find a central location. Everything that would be equally accessible by the east, south, north, and west siders is a challenge. And early on in our formation, we were looking for property. And it turned out we were putting the cart before the horse. There are a lot of other issues that we need to address first. But in terms of you as potential members can help. If you learn of property locations, bring it to our attention so that we can evaluate them as soon as practically possible. These properties come on the market and then they go off the market. But in actuality, before we can afford to pay the rent and the cams or the triple nets that we're going to be facing, we still need to worry about a little significant issue which is going to be addressed later in the slides, and that is fundraising. So I'm just going to ask all of you right now to keep your eyes open for places, but it's a little bit premature until we reach a threshold in our fundraising activities before we can literally leap into a piece of property. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, so the purpose of us going over the real estate is to emphasize we need to raise some funds to be able to jump on something when the opportunity comes. And the one thing I'd like to emphasize about the fundraising is it's not going in anybody's pocket. This is all either going to be going for the property, or it's going to be going for equipment, or whatever ongoing expenses the place has, insurance, utilities, that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind, please. Where is, can I go on to the next one? Or?
Well, you haven't addressed this yet.
Oh.
I would love to proceed to the next slide, yes.
So, St. John's Church on the north side, tentatively, they still have to go through a board and everything, but there's a small space that they may be wanting to host us in. And the space is small, but it's also attached to like meeting rooms and that kind of stuff that we could use, you know, when the schedule allows, which we have to build. But it would be a good place for like setting up the 3D printers. And the other thing that's clean is the laser cutter, which Chris will probably, he's shaking his head, no, it's not clean, but that's pretty cool. They got a big filter in there, so we're going to exhaust outside. So, anyways, so as far as fundraising goes, we were hot and heavy on the patronicity deal because that's who MEDC works with, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And we thought we would be in line to get matching funds from them. But it turns out MEDC will only deal with existing nonprofits. So we're trying to get to be existing and hopefully eventually get MEDC will give you $50,000.
Barry.
Oh, here goes Barry. Go ahead, Barry.
Just comment on the patronicity. Pat was right. It was an early opportunity for us, but like any state granting related organization, they don't provide seed money up front. So we can still get matching funds, but if but they'll only finance in terms of matching funds the back half of any budget that you've set. So let's assume for this discussion that we set a budget of $200,000 to acquire, so that we would acquire a building, what do you call it? You build it out, you do all the sheet metal and all the electrical, and then you need to bring the rent. If we had $100,000 in funding, and we applied to them, we would be eligible for the second half of that budget. So the second 100,000, and then they would match up to 50,000. So we would have to raise 50, which they would match 50 to close that $100,000 of the $200,000 budget. So it is not out of the question yet. Just wanted to let you know that it's not something we can apply for with $0 in the bank. We have to have some funding already created before we can apply to that organization. Any questions on that?
Any questions? Okay, we don't want to dive into the weeds too much.
I could go over the 100 Founders concept real quick.
Yeah, if you would.
That one's blatantly stolen from Make Nashville. So the co-founder that I referred to earlier, he actually was killed in a car accident a few years ago, so he's not part of that community here. I'd have invited him up here already. But he had this great idea. His wife is currently a judge. Well, it's super easy to find a bunch of people with money if you're a judge. So there was a large amount of like politicians and leadership in Nashville that put in money to look supportive and positive in the community. But the idea is the first 100 people that donate $1,000 or more become part of that 100 Founders group. And we just directly took the concept, including the name, and duplicated that here because it was very, very effective. There was a lot of cash raised by that. So I think that's one of the big places. And then of course that dovetails over to sponsorship, which will probably end up being a space where I deal with some of it to try to get those brands activated. And that's part of the convenience of the name of the Founders Gallery, because you can probably guess who I want to talk to about making sure that their name is at the top of the Founders Gallery display. So if you know somebody, let me know, because if they don't put their name on that, they're nuts. So there's the rundown on that piece of it, but that's kind of a later thing, the sponsor part. The 100 Founders thing is a right now kind of thing, and that's an open and available concept that we would like to push forward.
So Barry contacted some of his former contacts, and we've actually got one founder so far. So hopefully we're getting some more. I mean, I think this is a worthwhile endeavor. And you go out to the Lakeshore Fab Lab, and they've got plaques all over the place. You know, different people who donated to make the thing happen. So that's what we're looking for. But we're also looking for all those little guys that are going to band together and raise, a portion of this. So right now, our memberships are going to be broken down into a supporting membership. We're asking anybody who can afford it to sign up for a reoccurring $10 a month subscription membership. And that money is going to be accumulated until we can get a place. And it's going to entitle you to some discounts in that, and you will be grandfathered in to that $10 tier going beyond that. So it'll go up to $20 after we actually open.
And that one's also based on something that I never got. In Nashville, I couldn't be a casual supporter. I think now they finally have it, it's $35 a month. But for me, the target needs to be forgettable, like your Netflix payment or whatever, right? So that's why we landed on the $20 mark. But if everybody in this room became a $10 contributor, we'd have a $300 operating budget per month already out the gate. And then that would lead to a lot of things. I mean, you spend a little money and make a little more money, right? So we can start advertising, we can start doing a few little things. But the idea there is if you never want to do anything but make sure there's a makerspace in your community, you sign up for $10 and you can stay a member for $10 for 20 years, we don't care. But if you leave that tier and go up and become a full member, you don't get the $10 if you move back down. But this needed to be something accessible. It's something that I really believe is easily doable for a lot of people that just think it's a good idea and it should happen, that aren't going to make use of it. And that's kind of my pocket, right? If I wasn't on the board, I'd probably still want to pay in to help it be a thing.
But then the people who are actually going to be active members that are going to come down and make stuff will be in one of the other 3 tiers. Like I said, we're trying to keep this as affordable as we can. If we get a bunch of sponsors later on or grants or whatever, we're going to either talk to the membership and use it to purchase additional equipment, or maybe lower whatever fees or membership fees we're having to charge at that point.
So, sorry, who is kind of in charge of or responsible for this as a membership organization-y piece? I'm just thinking, like, is there a guest? the best way to get members is to bring in someone free.
Oh, sure. And
So, like, to make it so that you have to be paying $60 a month minimum to be able to bring in a free guest.
no,
Yeah, so I'm wondering, is
Oh,
this, is
that's all good.
how in stone is
no,
this
the bringing
versus
the
other
guest
things?
is like, guest is probably a bad term for it. It's like a husband and wife. If they're in that upper tier, we're not gonna charge two separate fees, right?
Like a co-membership or something.
Yeah,
It's,
Right,
if you
but
think
I'm
of it like
still-
Planet
I'm-
Fitness, it's like the black membership where you can bring somebody with you and you're probably gonna bring your partner or a friend that's a workout buddy. We're probably never gonna close the doors to somebody that wants to try it out a couple times. I don't think that we would, I think if you walked off the street and you weren't a member, we would probably let you in and play
I was
around.
gonna say, good, at least for a certain amount of time, and, you know, like, maybe you get, you know, like a special, well, okay, so what I would do is a coupon kind of thing, punch card,
Yep.
and you get maybe like 5 free, or,
a
you
good
know,
idea.
something like that, and then, you know, and then you ask for a donation at that point, supporting, because if you come in 4 or 5 times, you're hooked, I
Yeah.
mean, you've got somebody. And the access to space, does that mean like, those are the days you can come in, or you can use
Yeah, we
the
can-
space for a community event? What, because if you're paying $10 or even $20, but you don't get to actually go in, I don't understand that.
Well, we've gone back and forth on that.
Yeah,
right
no, you're
now-
not gonna get, frankly, yeah, you're,
Right
you're
now,
you're
that would
screwing
be-
yourself for all the young adults and the college kids and all
Well,
of that.
so that's for classes. So if you want to come in and get cleared to use equipment and make use of the space, that's a different kind of membership. But if you don't want to have to come pay $30 every time you come to a class, then you would get the supporting membership and use those discounts or those freebies, depending on how we structure it. The access to the space would start at real memberships. We just don't know where they're going to land price-wise. We just have a ballpark. The one day versus
So
all
this is more of the
days.
supporters. This is your monthly. This is your.
Yeah, we
money
haven't even begun to
component.
contemplate anybody casual beyond
Oh,
supporting
okay.
memberships.
All right, got
There's
it.
a world of just the
Yeah,
punch
yeah,
card idea, that's
100%,
brilliant.
yeah.
There's a world of those casual spaces that we really would flesh out. But we presume that most of the people who come into this room and have this meeting are probably wanting to be members and be active full-time.
But as more of a supporting.
So the one day is
this
pick a
is the
day.
friends.
Pick a day,
The
come
friends
that
group.
week. We might be open 3 days a week. We might be open 5 days a week. Whatever it is, you get one of those days. But if we're open 5 days a week and you're on an all-day level, you could come 5 days. And we may be playing with that. It may become 2 days. We just don't know yet where those land. And obviously, like he said, if we get massive grants, we'll just turn around and say, hey, everybody, that's cool. It's free for everybody this year.
That's what I was involved with Geek Squad or Geek Group way back in the day. Before
And these are all theoretical.
he went dark. I want to say that I was not involved during that
Do you
period.
remember how much Geek Group was charging at the
It
end?
was nothing, like $5 a month.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, it's 35.
Well, see, I was a supporter, so was it
Yeah.
35? Okay.
And these are all where we're developing currently. The goals mean nothing more than we did the math on what we think we need as a budget, and these are how we could hit those budgets. These ranges are based on mileage radius around, looking at other spaces of comparable offerings.
Do
We
we have a
can't-
slide with the other spaces?
What now?
Do we have a slide with the other spaces?
No,
charging?
no. You didn't ask for that slide, so it didn't get made.
We had that at the last meeting.
Well, I could tell you that where I'm gonna be moving out in Arizona, the wood shop there is probably 2 times this room. They got any kind of imaginable tool they want. It's $50 a year,
A year? Wow.
Yeah.
And then you have to buy, you know, whatever supplies, or you can bring your own supplies in. And then they also have rental for, to put your supplies in. But that is very far and few between, so.
Are they funded?
Huh?
Are they funded by some outside source?
They must be.
No.
Yeah. Do they have rent?
Well, yeah, they've got.
I know that the platform that Lakeshore Fab Lab has is that like equipment that costs more to operate costs you time. Like I paid for the laser, I think a couple hours, and it was like, I don't know, maybe $80.
$30 an hour.
Yeah, like something like really, really minimal, but like I understood that. Like I understood that there was like this additional fee, not just in materials, but also in what it costs to maintain that space. It has a higher preventative maintenance system that they have to perform on it. If something goes wrong with it, you know, it was my first time using it, so it was iffy there until Chris stepped in, but, you know, there's risks to the machine and there's risks to operating certain things like cost. And I love that idea. I'd love to talk to you because I have a couple of questions about like how you operated for the NKDL. One of the things that I always kind of go back to is that I don't know if other spaces you've been to had, you know, were they also the nonprofit? Were they also trying to start up with like crowdfunding sources, with sources where we're trying to reach out into community impact, or was it someone trying to like operate a business? Because that's very different from what we're doing here. So I just want to like.
Yeah. So
And we did talk about in our planning meeting most recently how to handle materials costs and ongoing maintenance, and we didn't land on a specific enough target to share anything that we could tell you makes any sense right now. So we entertained some models from other spaces, and we're just still leaving that conversation open.
What's up, Barry?
I think it's really
Well, I was just going to chime in on anecdotally about fees. Make Santa Fe here is an organization I've been associated with since I moved to Santa Fe. And when I travel, I visit makerspaces in all the cities that I visited. And as been said, some places charge very nominally, but as a whole, you're going to find memberships in excess of $60 a month. And if you want 24-hour access, that is another additional fee. And the reason for that is liability insurance. If these people come into the shop and they're unsupervised, that presents a big problem and would raise insurance costs as well. So we're a nonprofit. We are really trying to structure everything so that it is just a cost plus operation expense business here, so that we can provide continuously operating equipment for you guys and a safe place to work. So, you know, I understand that everyone's looking for the least expensive option, but when we look at the books, we have to be able to operate in the red, black, not in the red. So keep that in mind. And we're trying to do the best to serve everybody, but we're not going to, as the old saying goes, right? You're not going to be able to satisfy everybody all the time. So, but we're very conscious of that, and we're trying to work out the best solutions, and we welcome your input on that. Thanks.
So, since this is my first
Yeah.
time with y'all, has there been talk about like, okay, so like I'm not into woodworking, I'm not into car repair,
right.
and those are the bigger,
having-
more expensive-y kind of,
Yeah.
especially for insurance and all
Right.
that. Has there been
That-
talk of
that's-
having like a
that's what
separate?
like the Lansing Makers Network has a tiered system. That's where we
Yes.
came off
Right,
with.
or even like a separate section, or even a separate building, for instance, depending on what you're
Look,
looking for.
you're talking buildings. What is it want?
I'm 18 branches in the library, sorry. I'm
So,
like, yeah, let's,
just since we're in to the discussion about cost, the all-time cheapest thing in Michigan right now is Chris's facility out at Lakeshore Fab Lab in Muskegon.
Yeah, we
And
don't
the
make
reason
money
they
on
can,
this.
but Chris, you want to explain how they keep the cost so low?
We wouldn't be in business if this was if it was a separate thing that wasn't attached to a college.
Right.
Like our revenue, the highest point has been like in the 30,000s for the year. So, yeah.
And jumping off of what Chris just said, if we can, like Grand Valley, GRCC, all of them had said, if we can show them something, if beyond a proposal, beyond like, if we can like show them like physical evidence that this is something that the community wants, that spikes their interest and that gives them power to go to their board, because they're a community government or privately funded thing too. So it's kind of like you're playing at all of like these like different moving parts, and we've had discussions where they're like, I want to be a member for me, but even more importantly, I want this to succeed so I can go to my boss and we can get you that funding. Because it's really hard to like pitch an idea for funds these days almost, in like the government aspect of it, or like working in the the free space.
one place that you might look for money, because there's a boat ton of it,
Yes.
is after-school programs. The governor just put millions of ARPA funds into after-school programs, and I can get you hooked up with the main
I would
after-school
love to
programs, both
connect
in
with
Grand
you.
Rapids and in Lansing.
Yeah, I think
So,
I have a couple more
yeah, I
questions
was
for
at
you
a
too.
conference recently with
Depending
them,
on your
so.
night, let's, okay.
Yeah, so there's,
The
the
word
money
about-
is there.
Is there,
Yeah.
and it's STEM stuff.
Yeah.
But really, our emphasis is not STEM.
So
It's
what
gonna
would you say
be,
is-
STEM will eventually come to it, but initially, it's gonna be an adults makerspace.
Well, that's what I was gonna talk to you
Yeah.
about, because I would love to, children are more expensive and the insurance and liability cost
Right.
changes. But if we can I'm not trying to monopolize time, sorry, if we can make the impact and be successful with a makerspace for adults, that can then do maybe programs for kids where we have once a month, come build a birdhouse, very similar to how Home Depot has, you can get the kids. Or oh wow, we have someone interested in showing how to do those disarticulated animal creatures on the 3D printer. Those kids eat that up. So it's kind of the dream is big, right?
The other thing though to know is the after school stuff, the people I met at this conference, they were workforce development.
Okay.
So they're high schoolers. They're, there's groups in charge of high
Right,
schoolers
that's more
who are looking
what
for
we
a
want to
workforce,
attune
yes,
to
for a
first.
workforce development
Right.
scenario. So there are various
Right.
That
segments
sounds
here that I
amazing.
can hook, I can get you.
I'm not against the STEM thing, it's just that we
Yeah.
need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to have
Well, the
a
Fab
core
Lab's
of
got
people.
a really nice STEM classroom that no one can staff, right?
Right.
So that's the other problem, right? You could have the money and not have the interest or the personnel.
Oh, I have the interest.
Well, for sure. You get the kids, right? You gotta have, a lot.
So,
There are multiple pitches for this that we keep talking about, and we're getting close to making the deck, and it'll be a customizable kind of deck. So if you're pitching to education, the reason for Makerspace is because nobody teaches anything useful that you can do with your hands anymore in the school. So when I talk
No
to
shop
a lot of
classes.
politicians, I tell them, we don't have vocation anymore, and you want to talk about it and be a leader in that area and bring it back, then help us make a makerspace happen. It's a shortcut around the BS of dealing with the school system. You just help us, and ta-da! And so there's
what was
that.
One more time.
So the other pitch for that is you cannot grow city density and still have everybody with a detached garage and a workshop. So a big pitch, and one of these things that will appeal to Mayor Bliss when we speak with her is, you want to keep building density, you want to make the housing inventory problem go away by being able to put a lot of little 600 square foot pieces of property in, people need a place to go. And I've tried to explain it in short order to a lot of these folks in leadership. The makerspace is the workshop where the park is the backyard. People like to say that about an urban environment. You get the greatest backyard in the world in the park. You don't need a backyard. We also don't have a workshop, but now we give you one. So it supports that, and it also supports entrepreneurship, prototyping, development of ideas. It opens the gate that's usually locked to small-time players. And then we have that diversity and equity pitch. That gate's extra locked if you're coming from a marginalized population. But we welcome anybody to come in the makerspace and experiment and play around. They don't have to try to convince the good old boy culture of the mid-sized production space to let them through the door. We give them that open door. So we got a lot of effective pitches that we can make at various civic levels, and that's one of the places that we're really excited about going.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, just to give you since we're talking about membership fees and the cost, I'll just give you a quick rundown of the different maker spaces in Michigan that we know of. Like I said, Chris at Lakeshore Fab Lab, they are the all-time winners, $25. How any place can exist for $50 a year, somebody's going to have to show me the math there. Now, All Hands Active, which is in Detroit, it's $50 a month. Right, Factory 2, which is in Flint, I know how they're able to keep their expenses low. There's $45 a month, and these are all probably over a year old now. Factory 2 pays $1 a year to rent their building.
They get that
I3
from the city?
Detroit- What's that?
Do they get that from the city?
I think it's just a very generous pay.
It's a donor, yeah. They're part of a foundation, like a.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mott funded, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, Mott
mine
funded.
about some money.
too.
Yeah.
Pretty rad.
Now,
Yeah.
because Mott's got its own, I don't think.
Yeah, it must be
Mott's
But
got,
the foundation?
There's a
I-
foundation.
maybe.
Yeah, the
Maybe.
foundation, yeah. I would guess not funded for
yeah,
plan.
maybe. I mean, whoever wants to give us money, we're good with it. I3 Detroit is $59. Kazoo Makers is $50. The Lansing Makers Network, like I said, they've got a two-tier thing, and that's kind of why we got looking at that. It's 35 and then 80, but I think that's what you were talking about, like the lesser, I don't want to call them lesser, but less.
Entry level,
What's that?
entry level memberships, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the stuff that doesn't cost money to maintain, like you said, sewing, maybe ceramics, that kind of stuff, you know, could be.
And
in
that's,
that
those
too.
are monthly fees, can you just, I'm typing it.
Yeah, they're all.
Yeah, those are
monthly,
monthly
okay.
fees. The Maker Works in Ann Arbor, which was a for-profit until last year, which is now a nonprofit, it's $110 a month. The Canton Workshop, which I believe is a for-profit, is $70, and just to bring it home locally, the Hotspot, which Abby, we talking about collaborating with her, she gets $80 a month for memberships, and she's just
And some high
making-
class prices.
And what's that?
Class
Her
prices.
class, individual
Yeah.
class pricing is high too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got class prices too. So obviously, the community can support these membership fees, you know, so it's,
Well, I'd like to see the numbers of members.
well, that's.
To
we would
say,
like-
are they supporting?
We would
Yeah,
like to see
yeah.
the that's part of it
Us
too. Is for us to really get a handle on how many members are actually gonna participate, is that one of the reasons we came up with the supporting membership.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely a bell curve, you have to hit a sweet spot for sure.
Yeah. So
But
was-
there's
was-
also the
was
fact
any-
that the Lansing and the Kalamazoo and I3, they're all established, they've been established 10 years or more. So they have the numbers paying those prices.
Right.
It's probably like
Well,
a gym too, where there's certain people who.
I often
show up
wonder
on
too,
times a
like,
year,
but who? I mean, if you're talking about wanting to get and provide something for people who are equity, diversity, inclusion, all of that, you know, like what, are you only catering to the upper level or mid-level people who maybe are living in a condo space and don't have, or are you catering to, you know, somebody from, I'm a West Sider, somebody from the, you know, the West Side who may only be making 50 grand a year,
What are you trying to
librarian
say
salary with a master's degree, by the way.
Yeah.
Fund your librarians, please. Anyway, so yeah, so
And
it's
keep
like
them public.
where, you know, have you done kind of that
I think the biggest thing,
aspect and dug into it?
I think one of the biggest things is where we're at on the journey here, right? Right now is that rally, right? When we're thinking about it, we're rallying the call to get a number of individuals to participate and buy into the program, right?
Right.
And then the next stage in the development of a makerspace is what kind of social equity programs can you provide? How can you build that base for the community that you're within, right? There's a dream and there's a vision to be able to have that social network and socially diverse equity program to be able to bring those outside people.
I just wondered, because you mentioned that you had grants, you mentioned you were talking outside.
We have
of
not
here.
achieved a
I mean,
grant yet.
right, okay, and then, I mean, no,
we have
a
a
grant, I
grant
mean,
guy.
a grant person, my apologies, a grant person. And then he had talked about, some of the other, sorry,
No,
but
no,
a
no,
grant
you're-
person and looked into it. I think that's kind of the river, that's kind of the horse before
Absolutely.
the cart.
And,
But,
and with
yeah.
social equity grants, if we don't obtain the reaction that the social equity grant had a promise to, we have incentive to make sure that we
Hey,
can
they're
do
not sure if everyone
exactly.
can hear me.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, you guys are muted right now. Would somebody unmute a mic,
Oh,
please?
thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
thanks, man. Sorry. We, and I should have been able to tell because the echo disappeared on the other laptop. It's been in the
We were just
So,
talking about you.
Sounds like I can like just
I would love to talk to
You
you.
didn't miss
Yeah,
much.
if
We just
anybody else
volunteered
doesn't
you.
care about any of this stuff, there's no reason I have to keep y'all.
When you think about the city of Grand Rapids, right? Like there are a ton of different
Neighborhood.
neighborhoods
Oh, well, yeah.
and communities that and programs that are going on. GR Outside, right? Right off of Granville Avenue, Martin Luther King I think Martin Luther King Avenue now.
Granville is Chavez.
Oh, is it Chavez?
Cedars,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry. They have GR outside right there,
Yep.
which is fully funded by members of the community
Yep.
that probably aren't utilizing it, right?
Correct.
And so we know that there's Friends of GR.
I was just gonna
GR
say, yeah, so it
Park.
sounds like you're in the sponsorship friends rally.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Got it.
to answer your question about the density housing thing, the idea is to provide the resource. I think we all want the cost to come down of the housing. So it doesn't matter who lives there, we want to serve that need. And then if we need to be able to make it affordable for the person to be a member, that's a program that we would need to explore through scholarships. And, you know, I would love for us to be able to have enough spare money to take scholarship applications for members that get a free ride for a certain whatever parameter. As far as, you know, the housing end of it, I don't know.
Housing end of it? I'm sorry, what
You
did
know,
you say?
well, you're correct. Somebody that lives downtown in a flat may have more money, or they may have no other money because they're having to
Because
pay
they're
for the
paying all the
damn
money
flat.
into their condo.
But we want to serve that need from a space perspective first, and then turn around and say, how can we, like, okay, not enough people could afford it because they're spending all their damn money on the rent. So, yeah, and I'm also a West Side guy, so I get it. It was where I gravitated as soon as we got here. I was so glad that's where we happened to find a house that we could afford to rent.
So the goal right now is to have like 100 members that we can call members.
The supporters.
Support. Well, no, we gotta have
No,
members.
members.
We can't just have support, we have to have members, because that's what a lot of the, you might be more familiar with it, but that's what a lot of these grant deals look for, is members, not just supporters. Supporter could be anybody, right? So.
But if you're rallying right now and what you just, okay, yeah, it's semantics.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but what we're looking for is like 100 people.
We'd love to have 100 full memberships. We'd love to have 100 founders. Those may be the same people or not the same people.
Okay, got it.
And then an infinite number of $10 supporters.
So.
And the big pitch on that would
That's the
be,
crowd.
if you think this is a thing that should happen, become a $10 supporter now. And then upgrade later when we build a space. That's really the takeaway from a membership perspective.
And how much money how much do you have in the bank right now? From your board
Kyla?
support and all that?
Isn't it like $1,200 or something?
Yeah, I think it's up to 18 now.
Okay.
Okay.
How much money do we currently have in the bank? Yeah, and then some of it's,
Is that because some of the money has been spent on things in advance, like you got a great deal for some piece of
No.
equipment and purchase?
we have spent no
It is
money out of this account at all.
1,200.
Well, we do have like $70 in a PayPal account that's not releasing into the bank account
Gotcha.
for some reason.
Yeah, so 1,300.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Right, a lot of the equipment is personally donated or donated from
Whoa,
other
whoa, whoa,
makers.
whoa,
Oh,
let's stop there. None of the equipment is donated. All the equipment is on loan.
Got it.
Got it? So, there's a reason for that. I've already been involved with one that failed Makerspace. Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm
Everything-
sorry. Well, why don't you speak to that? Like, everything has been sourced so far.
But there's over $10,000 worth of equipment waiting to find a place.
Must be sweet
That would
as
have
hell.
been
Let's
really
hear
cool
about
to
that.
see too. So I think that like,
Okay,
think
I
that the
just
group-
wondered how much, like I said, as an organization,
Right.
how much.
I'm surprised we haven't had more overlap than we have.
Yeah,
Right.
I am too.
So,
Especially with the 'cause I
first
was never
of all,
involved
let me
in
address
the
how,
GR.
this is a good showing for the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I probably received probably 20 responses that were like, yeah, I got it's Valentine's daddy-daughter dance night, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's like the best reason in the world not to be at the meeting, right?
Right.
So we're trying to take good notes.
I remember you not
Because-
coming to a few of those. With
Now the important thing though for me, from, you know, because this is what I do, is the curve. The first meeting I came to had about a dozen people. The last meeting we had in this room had about 20 people, and now tonight's meeting has 30 people. So to me, we're moving in the direction we want to be moving. And the interest was well beyond that, like Pat just spoke to, 20, oh, sorry, crap, I wish I could be theirs. And then there were 30 just interested parties on the Facebook event alone who are gonna at least see the updates we make after the fact when we say, hey, here's the cool stuff you missed. So there's a really good growing momentum there, and I think that it's the direction we would want to see.
And is that where we do go to get more information? Is the Facebook or the Reddit? It sounded
I would
like
say that
there
your
was
email
both Reddit and
group
Facebook.
is
We're trying to do it all.
provided.
Let's put it this way, the website will be the first one to get updates.
Yeah.
Takes a while to spread it out over all the different.
Because a lot of people on Reddit said, I'm not going to worry about clicking on a Facebook link. I don't want to have anything to do with Facebook. Can you give us another link? We
I was
gave them
gonna say, yeah.
the calendar link from Google. So we try to put it everywhere, but there can be different people that are doing different things. So like the first person might get to it day one, the next person maybe 2 days before they post it in the next place. And, but of course, when we have a space and we have an office and there's an operation every day, that'd be a lot easier because it can be somebody's job.
And overall, between all the Reddit responses, and some of the people who initially were enthusiastic about the Makerspace have seemed to kind of dropped off. I'm not sure what that's about. But overall, I would say we've easily had 200 people express interest in having a Makerspace. So I'm figuring if we can get 50% of those, which may be a high, a high
Right.
bar. But
And I think it's talking about people who want to start making it happen and being involved in getting it happening versus like, I wish it existed,
Right.
but I don't have time for that, and there's that's totally understandable.
And
The
going back
more
to the
success
community
leads to
colleges,
more
we-
success, right? Like that's what you have to
We
do.
have contacted West Michigan University, GRCC, and GVSU. And all of them are expressing interest. And a lot of them have said that if we do get it up and running, they will actually buy memberships for exiting students to be able to have somewhere to go.
Graduation.
Right, so.
Which then gets into yearly packages, right? Because we want
right.
to make it easy for them.
Yep.
Here's one package.
Yep.
Right.
We haven't even ventured there yet.
Yeah, gotcha.
And
Let's do a couple more questions so we can have some time to mingle, because we do end at 8, and I think maybe I don't know if it's a hard 8, but
nah,
I don't want us to run out of time. I want everybody to be able to talk and mingle and chit chat about projects. So a couple more questions for us, but also I forgot to highlight earlier, you noticed at the bottom of that board slide, and you,
Yeah.
the charter allows for more board members than this. So we will be working on our application process for that to see about who wants to be involved. And so if you have that interest, please don't be insulted if you're not called or it's not followed up. It's a process.
and at the present time, we're like maxed out on the quota of old white guys, okay?
That's also, I wasn't going to say that, but we would love to get more people in from more trade backgrounds, more interest areas, more diverse age, gender, racial mix. But please do keep in mind that if you're interested in that, we're interested in that as well. So keep your ears open for those conversations. You may be pulled aside and somebody says, hey, I think you'd be great. You might hear a public call and fill out an application. We don't know which way that'll go, but please be aware that we don't have a full board to the complement yet. And we would love to fill that up with great people. And there are a lot of good ideas rolling around this room. That's why we're having these meetings. I'm going to get another slice of pizza while you answer questions.
Okay. What you got?
Yeah, just by reading the room, I feel like I'm opening a can of worms here, but there are a few different makerspaces that flopped. What went wrong and what is different?
Okay, so, is this your first meeting?
Yeah.
Let's go over the history of the makerspaces in Grand Rapids. Like I said, almost every major city in Michigan has a makerspace. Grand Rapids had 2 for its size community. That was great, right? The one, and Steve could probably speak to this better than I can, was GR Makers, which, from what I understand, was basically a passion project of an individual. Go ahead, Steve.
The GR Makers was originally started by a guy in Granville who had meetings at his space until it got too big. And then he went to the 3 last year, 3. They went out and found someone to expand it to an actual space. That was GR Grand Rapids Makers. That was a That was sort of a passion project, but Mark Van Holstein and an invisible partner, they made it a low-profit business. So they expected a profit of some sort. And they didn't get it. They didn't really share a lot with members. I mean, I was one of them who tried to help and would ask questions and basically hear silence. And it eventually closed. They got sick of funding it. So it was a nice space though.
Okay, and then I'll speak to the Geek Group. What was it called before it was the Geek Group?
An infamous one.
Yeah.
What was it before there was Geek Group? All this?
It was Geek Group first, and then it was the National Science Group.
No, they had a name before that too.
I
I
remember.
don't think so. I think it started as Geek Group.
Well,
Maybe, I don't know.
regardless.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Geek Group, the founder from that, the Geek Group was actually founded in Kalamazoo, and they apparently got in a little trouble with the municipalities down there, so they moved up to Grand Rapids, and they had a great thing going on. They had an old YMCA. It was a huge facility, very, from what I could see, disorganized. It was hard to get anything accomplished there because like nobody had time for you. In which, you know,
Yeah, then
maybe just be part of the way it works. But the founder, who shall
We don't have to go into detail.
Or if you ever hear Chris, just Chris. Just his first name is Chris. That's all you need to know.
he got involved with cryptocurrency, and then he got more involved with other stuff, and then he apparently started laundering money. And I know with the few conversations I had with him that he made a big amount of noise about that he doesn't make as much as a Burger King manager and blah, blah, blah. So I guess he was reaching for a little bit more. And
So for profit. He was trying to be a for-profit.
personally.
On a personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every alphabet
He had a
agency
wee
in the
bit of
country.
corruption.
Yeah, every alphabet
kind
agency
of
the government
pain.
could throw at them showed up one day, ATF, FBI.
Oh, yeah. It
All of
was-
them showed up, IRS.
Just
One of the-
Google it
one of the
online
big things-
and you'll get a big.
One of the big takeaways from the Geek Group though is that there was a lot of buy-in.
Yes.
From the local community
Huge.
and from the businesses around.
Especially the businesses. I mean,
100%,
he
so-
had, oh my God. Do we know, I'm assuming the Fed seized all of his stuff?
You know,
Because
that's,
holy majoli.
yeah, that's the thing that
Oh.
kind of gets me is that.
They're like locked up in assets right now or in some sort of investigation, let's just say it that way. You can Google it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it'll
but
say.
I mean, all the
But I'm saying like the assets from.
Well, it's already knocked, the building's knocked down,
Okay.
they're putting in density
all of
housing.
that was community property, right?
Once the FBI came in, it started.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wondered.
Yeah, so I
where-
don't know what happened.
Anybody have-
Did that kind of help answer the questions or did you have follow-up?
No, it was probably.
'Cause
Yeah, but that's what happened
It's-
too, that
Most
we're
of
here.
it was, yeah.
Go ahead.
money.
What's your time frame?
We were hoping to have something open this spring. And the one space that we showed for $2,200, I know that probably seems a lot, since we only have $1,300 in the bank right now. But if we could secure enough to get that moving, I think we could find some money to at least open the door. Okay, and it would depend on the landlord being willing to go along with the scheme. But the one good thing about the one that I showed you that was right here in Granville is that he had no problem with us only being open a month. Because he said, if you don't pay your bill, I'll just kick you out the next month and confiscate your equipment. So, you know, well, he's being honest, so. But he was willing to give us a chance too. Now, that's what we're gonna try talking to these people that got this one over. I wish I remembered the address, but it's over by Horrocks. It's also making Kentwood, right?
Brever?
What's that?
I know there's a Horrocks down in Brever.
Well, it's by Horrocks, it's not at Horrocks. It's like within a mile, because my wife and I go to Horrocks.
Is it heading toward Beltline more?
No, Horrocks, I think the Horrocks he's talking to is on 44th Street.
Right, toward Beltline. On 44 toward Beltline or on 44th toward 131?
44th and the restaurant.
Yeah, that's where Horrocks is, but no, I'm saying, is it heading toward Beltline?
Came up on Facebook,
The other,
and I believe they had the address on
because there's
there
no
originally,
bus out that
because
way.
we visited it already.
There's no bus
Yeah,
out.
now
That,
it's
if
on
you're
the
heading
address.
more east,
If I drove over there, I
there's
could
no bus there.
Yes, sir.
United, did you talk with Little Space Studio at all? Like Kevin White, he's on Division Street in Grand Rapids.
Right, they're like in a different,
They're like a co-working,
right.
but in the, they have all that on top, and then
Yeah.
underneath, like in the basement, it's all clear, and they actually have like a little makerspace thing going that's just super on the side of their business. But he's interested in pushing that out.
Yeah, right.
Little Space Studio,
Willow?
little space.
Yeah, there's two.
There's one in Zeeland and there's one right downtown. I don't know, it might be worth it. I went because I was looking for something. It's like, yeah, I want to build this out.
The only thing about being like directly downtown
Yeah.
is that then you gotta deal with parking.
Yeah, and it
Now-
sucks if you gotta like.
Right, so if people aren't willing to pay $45 just to be a member, and then you wanna throw, you gotta pay.
Or just
parking.
imagine us like lugging 2x4s that around to get to our project.
Did you check with, they've got it's the former GM, I think it's GM factory, for the Alpine. They've got a bunch of different, they've got a studio, movie studio space in there, and they've got a boat ton, but I know they have leasing space to lease. I don't know if,
Well, when the Delta flights went down,
And I just saw
they
that.
had, not an actual
right.
interested party.
Well, Delta Flex isn't on the bus line though,
Check, make sure nobody
whereas
online has
this other
questions.
place is, but it's part of the old GM. I can get the
Any
contact.
questions from anybody on screen before we close up the digital?
Come on, Kevin, I can see you.
I think you're muted. Maybe. There you go.
I think it was. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Last question goes to Kevin.
Are any notes or agendas or presentations, active resources going to be available afterwards?
On the website.
I just sometimes.
Yeah, on the website, all the slides will be on there, and we'll have a meeting, summation on there.
Yes.
Hopefully we get some of the good questions on there too. So people, but the thing is, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. I'd really like to emphasize that.
Some FAQs.
Yeah.
Because the one makerspace that I was involved with down south, that's why it went
Oh,
south.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Was because the guy kept all the cards close to the chest, didn't tell anybody anything, and then, everything was.
Hey, Pat, how can I become a member today?
So if we want to buy in, how do we do that?
Okay, that's a good question. Did we pay?
Do you have an application?
No, so right now we've got,
On the website right now, it's available.
on the website.
Which
We
is?
got marked as, it's Grand River Makerspace.org. And then if you go to, it says One Stop Donation Center, there's, you can either pay for, we've got from $10 to $1,000 one-time donation, or you can get the subscription, which is $10 a month right now.
And then I think Kyla has some.
Yep.
Go ahead.
If anybody wants to set up with reoccurring payments and they don't want to go through the website and they want a different amount or anything, I can do that right here tonight.
Okay.
So
Everybody
if
catch that?
anybody's interested in that, they're welcome to come see me.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll hang out, have more soda, chit chat.
Well, thanks, everybody who came today.
Thanks for coming.